Hello, witch. So today in this lesson, we are going to jump in on how to build your own personal grimoire. And I think when I first started practicing witchcraft over 10 years ago, this was one of the things that I was most fascinated about, right? It's just so magical and something that I love personally putting together. So for those of you that are new to the craft or just jumping into witchcraft, you're probably thinking like, what is a grimoire? You've more than likely heard it be called the Book of Shadows, Book of Spells, spell book, right? Grimoire. You can call it anything you like. I personally call it a grimoire. And so that's kind of what I'll be calling it throughout this lesson, but you are more than welcome to call it whatever you want, right? It can be your shadow book, just your book, whatever resonates with you. That's what I want you to call it. So your grimoire is not like, I think there's this like misconception of like, okay, like where do I go buy it? Right? Like where can I get this universal text and like it just comes done for me, right? So your grimoire is not something that you can like go buy at Barnes and Noble or thrift books, but it's a personal journal, personal diary that records your journey. I almost said Junie, funny, my daughter's name. It records your personal journey through your craft, right? And so your experiences on being a witch, a modern mystic, an empath. And this book is full of your spells and rituals, magic potions, formulas, recipes, really anything and everything you can put into your grimoire. Even meanings of your favorite herbs, your favorite crystals that you use for healing, or any type of thing that you use in your magical practice is what you're going to want to put in this grimoire. And some of you are probably thinking like, what? That's a lot of work and I don't want to do that. And that's completely fine. I would suggest if you don't want to put like an actual physical book together, you can absolutely put an electronic one together, right? So Canva is really good for this. Good Notes, an app on your phone. You can electronically gather all of these ideas and notes and put them together electronically, because I promise you, you're going to love looking back on everything that you've learned, whether it's over 6 months, a year, 10 years into the future. You'll be able to look back on your journey through witchcraft, and it is just so special. And then also it's just nice to I do a lot of cooking, and I never write my recipes down. Like I find them online and I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. And then I go back and I'm like, wait, how did we make that asado? Like, what did we use? What spices did I put in there? And that's exactly how it is, right? For your craft is like, hey, I did this bomb spell and I didn't write it down because I was just going through it with my intuition. And you go back and you're like, well, gee, I'd really like to create that again, but you don't have the ability if you're not writing it down, or you want to add something to it, you want to take something out of it. So I encourage you, whether it is an actual physical book or an electronic book, to start building your grimoire if you haven't already. And so one of the I think the biggest challenges as a witch, and well, for me, I am a perfectionist, was the starting of this physical book was very, very scary for me, because I was like, but I want it to be really pretty, right? And so if you're a perfectionist or I like to call myself a recovering perfectionist because I know I can't be perfect. But if you are a recovering perfectionist like me, what I do, and I know a lot of other witches do as well, is like you have your rough draft, right, of a spell or of something that you're wanting to put in your grimoire, and then you have like the pretty version that you actually pen into your grimoire. And so that is completely okay too, right? Is if you're wanting just like the in the thick of things, right? You're writing things out and it looks crazy and you don't want that to actually be in your grimoire, then have a draft and then go back in and later add it in. There is no right or wrong way to do this. So I just want you to follow your own intuition on how to put this book together for yourself. So that's kind of how I got over my but I want it to look pretty, right? But we all know that that our work isn't pretty at times, right? Like things are coming and you're downloading from source and you're going through your intuition, and sometimes that's just not pretty, or you won't remember what you put in. So I highly suggest, if you want it to look perfect, that you have a working document as well, and then later you can go back and put it in. And even is in an electronic file as well, you can do that as well. So no problem. So the second thing that you'll want to focus on is deciding on organization, or like your intro to of how you're wanting to organize that, right? If you want everything to be organized like by section. So your herbs are in one section, and then your crystals are in another section, and all of your spells are in another section, and your rituals, so on and so forth. Then I would suggest, right, then you can put those in organized sections, and as you add, you'll just add that to each section, right? If your brain doesn't work that way, or that does not appeal to you, and then you can do a chronological order of how you're growing, right? I know when I first started, there is so much to learn, right? And not saying that there's not so much to learn now, because there is, but it's almost overwhelming of all of the information that you're wanting to learn. And so if you're wanting like a more of a chronological order of your grimoire, then you can absolutely do that too. You make a table of contents of, as you go, and then as you add in things to your grimoire, you'll just go back to your table of contents and update accordingly. So this will be more of a working, and both options, right, are living, breathing, because you're constantly adding to it. But those are kind of your two options on how to decide on the organizational pattern, if you will. And then I also just want to note that, how I build my grimoire, how I like things is not right or wrong if it doesn't feel right to you, right? So you want to follow how you would set something up, and you want to make it special. My grimoire, actually just ordered a new one off of Etsy, and it took me about a year to make the decision of which new grimoire I wanted, because I wanted to make it that special, right? That is just because I'm very picky, and I kept going back and forth on designs. And hopefully my grimoire will be here next week. And so I will update this lesson just with a picture, just so you can see it. But it is the sun and the moon and some astrology behind it. So I am in love with the stars and everything to do with astrology. So that just fit perfect for my new grimoire. So I'm excited, but you want to make it your own, right? And so however you do that, if you're very, very crafty and like a DIYer, you can make your own pages, make your own cover. I have seen some gorgeous grimoires from super crafty witches, and I think that's wonderful. If you're just wanting to put your own like poems on the front of it or anything like that, you just want to go nuts decorating, drawing, do whatever you can to make it feel special to you. So the kind of the third thing that I guess step 3, if I think we're on step 3, right? What to pick, if it's electronic or an actual physical grimoire, how to organize it, whether it's chronological or if you're doing it by section. And then, step 3 is, well, I guess step 3 is make it your own, right? Make it special. So step 4 is, okay, so what do I include? And so this is not, obviously, this is not like a full list of what to include in your grimoire, but I want to give you some ideas. And then I will also have in this lesson some like grimoire pages that you can print off and put in your own grimoire, or you can copy them down and write them into your grimoire. However you want to use them, you absolutely can. So, but some things that you'll want to include, right? I always go to the crystals first because crystals are one of my first loves. And so I have my favorite crystals written out of what I use them for, and you know, how I have put in how I've made grids in the past. You can do, you know, properties of the crystals, the uses of what you would use them for. You can also include herbs, essential oils. You know, in another section of you can include drawing and pictures if you are creative. But those are some of the list of things that is very easy to start with, of the items that you use the most, right? And then another item that you can incorporate is truly like journaling pages. So whether you have a dream journal, or if you have like I have a journal for each ritual that I do for the full moon and new moon, to kind of go back and see what I asked for to come into fruition for the full moon, and then what I would be working on in the new moon. And it's nice to look back on that and say, oh, like this like came about, this is what I was working on, or like, I kind of forgot about that, it wasn't really that important. And that's why, you know, I was guided away from it. So and even just your like spiritual health and energy, right? Where you're at in that moment. So you can always put, you can use it as a journal and put some journal entries in there. One of the other things that you can absolutely include if you follow, worship, work with any deities, are the gods and goddesses that you work with. So your blessings to them, your prayers to them, any like calling and statements of power to them, you can absolutely include in your grimoire as well. And then speaking of statements of power, any, you know, do you want to have a dedication in the beginning to your grimoire? I know, you know, some people include like the Wiccan read, or we should make a gray witches read, right? And so maybe and actually I'm gonna write that down right now, but I'm gonna make a gray witches read that we can, I will, but you can as well, put into your grimoire as well. And then what other like statements of power? So your guiding like ethical principles and your code of your like witchy code, you can write in there as well. Any goals or beliefs, anything that you think would be beneficial to include, I definitely make a space for that in your grimoire. If you are a crafty person, again, if you're a DIYer, I am not a DIYer. I love watching people DIY, but that is just not me. But if that is you, if you are super creative in that way, you can include your crafts and like your how-to guides on things. I take that back. I did do a DIY wreath last spring or 2 springs ago now, and it turned out phenomenal. So that's something that, you know, you can add to your grimoire. And then any like pictures and sketches and doodles that you're maybe wanting to do, add that in for sure. Going back to cooking, right? I love to cook, and I especially love to cook for the Sabbats. And so add in recipes, your favorite food and meal for the Sabbats, or something that you're wanting to cook for upcoming. Any recipes, if you know, doesn't have to correspond with food, you can put in recipes that you're using for like crystal elixirs, if you are making potions, oils, incense, herb, you know, any herb blends that you're putting together, put that into your grimoire. And then of course you want to include your magical workings, right? So your spells, your rituals, any prayers or chants that you've done or have made, you can include those. And I know I've said that you've made a lot, right? But even if you use them, right, you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel on a like we had a member of our Gray Witches group recently post a money bowl that he made, and that was something that like dozens of people took his recipe and made their own money bowl and used his money rice recipe. Like that is something that you'll also want to put into your grimoire if it's something that you connect with and that you'll use. So not necessarily, I know that I've been saying like, oh, your own, but put any work that you'll use, put that in your grimoire so you can come back to it. And then another thing that you can put in if you are into divination, if you read tarot or runes, any like astrology things that you're putting in, I would you can put that into your grimoire as well. And whether that's just photos, like a drawn picture of the tarot card of the day that you're doing. I got these, I plan on in my new grimoire, I got these tarot stamps from Ritual Planner, and I'll put a link below this as well. But they are so cute, and I have been using them, and I'm gonna start putting them in my grimoire I've been pulling a tarot card a day, and it's just this little stamp, probably like 1 inch. It's not in here, or I would show it to you guys, but it's like 1 inch by 1 inch, and I stamp it down, and it just creates like the tarot card that I have pulled for that day. And I love it because I can just do like a little daily journal of the tarot cards that I've done. So I'm going to start incorporating that into my grimoire. So that is something that you could put in there as well. And then of course, any celebration guides for the Sabbats, rituals and rites that you do as well. I am working on creating a Sabbat guide for everyone. And so we will have that uploaded as well. And so you can just a quick reference guide for each pagan holiday will be wonderful. And you can add that to your grimoire if you so choose. And then last but not least, some of the things that kind of just maybe don't fit into a category, but photos of your altars or photos of your of the coven, right? If we're jumping on a live Zoom call, and we record everything, if we do like a screenshot or a screen share of everyone on the call, like that's something that you can print off and put into your grimoire as well, which would be really special. And then I know that some people have animal totems, and so you can absolutely include that as well. So I think, and of course, this isn't like an all being list. This is just a good place to start for you. And maybe it gave you some ideas that you haven't added into your grimoire yet. So, and then I think just the last step is, or I don't know if we're on steps, but The kind of the last thing to think about is you want to consecrate or bless your grimoire as well. And so whether that's just placing it on your altar and cleansing it, clearing it with incense or sound, like I use a witch bell a lot to cleanse. You can use, if you do like sound healing with singing bowls